Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss some of the main steps in a statistical test procedure and also some types of type hypotheses. So if we are choosing some hypothesis, that could be sometimes one tail, that could be two tail, that could be composite, that could be simple, and some of that has already been discussed in the previous videos as simple hypothesis and the composite hypothesis, the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis, etc. were discussed before. So in this video we are going to handle types of some types of the alternative hypothesis or the H1. So the first one is when the alternative hypothesis is one-tailed. So the alternative hypothesis is said to be one-tailed if it is in the form h1 mu greater than 50 or less than 50 or greater than a constant or less than or constant. So if our hypothesis involves these signs of greater than or less than or greater than or equal to or less than or equal to but not necessarily equal to, we always go for the strict less than or greater than symbols because always our h naught used to be a symbol hypothesis. So if the h naught is a symbol hypothesis, it may take the value mu h naught mu equal to 50, and so we will reject it if h1 is not is equal to 50 or less than 50 or greater than 50. So if it is less than 50 or greater than 50, then such tests are said to be one-tailed test. And if those alternative hypothesis has a not equal to sign, then such a hypothesis is called a two-tailed test, or such a test is called two-tailed test. So here the two-tailed example of a two-tailed test is H1 such that mean weight is not equal to 50 or mu not equal to 50, or it could be sigma not equal to 2, anything it could be, but like there is a not equal to symbol. If there is a not equal to symbol in the alternative hypothesis, then such a test of hypothesis is said to be a two-tailed test. And if there is a greater than symbol or a less than symbol in the alternative hypothesis, then such a test is called a one-tailed test. Okay, so I hope it is clear, and we have given some examples also. So now we are going to discuss some of the main steps in a statistical test procedure. So the main steps involves first the definition of a population. So we have to know what is a population on which we are going to apply our techniques to get a result or a decision. So we have to define our population at first, and we have to formulate the hypothesis. We have to formulate the hypothesis based on the problem that we are going to test. That could be H0 and H1. There will be an null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis, and for the null hypothesis we always take it to be a simple hypothesis, and for the alternative hypothesis we always formulate that either as a one-tailed test or a two-tailed test, depending on either it is a simple one which is a greater than symbol or a less, not equal to symbol. Now, next option or next step involved in the statistical test procedure is to choose an appropriate test statistic. So, depending on the population, depending on the hypothesis, we can choose an appropriate test statistics with that is a function, that test statistic is a function, and with the value that function takes or with the value that function gives, we can decide whether to accept or reject H naught. So the next step is to choose an appropriate test statistic. Next is, we know we have a range of variations or we have a space. So depending on the value this test statistic takes, we can divide that the wall space into two regions. That is, the first one is the acceptance region and the other one is the rejection region. So if the value of this test statistics lies in the acceptance region, if we calculate the test statistic, then if it lies in the acceptance region, then we shall accept the null hypothesis, and if it comes to the rejection region, then we shall reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so here are some more steps in the statistical test procedure. So that is to determine the level of significance. Yes, that means we have already told what are two errors in a testing. That is that is a type 1 error and type 2 error. So the type 1 error, the probability of type 1 error can be called as alpha, and the probability of type 2 error is beta. We have a requirement that for any test, its power must be so high. So the power is 1 minus beta. So for the power to be so high or power to be maximum, we need that beta, the probability of type 2 error must be so low. But we need actually both these errors to be minimum. But to make both these errors minimum at the same time is not possible. Why? Because when one error is put to minimum, the other one will be the at the maximum. So because of that reason, we cannot minimize both these errors to the minimum at the same time. So what we shall do is we shall fix alpha, that is a level of significance or size of the test. We shall fix it and we shall try to maximize the power. So when we try to maximize the power, it is like minimizing the type 2 error. Okay, so we shall determine the level of significance. That means we shall determine what is alpha and we shall fix alpha. Generally, alpha is taken to be 0.05 or 0.01. So if it is not specified in the question or anywhere, we usually take the alpha to be 0.05, and if it is specified, then it takes that value. So next, now we have already done, we have defined the population, we have defined the hypothesis, and we had an idea about the statistic. Next, we have divided the total range of variations to the acceptance region and rejection region, and we have fixed the level of significance. Now the main steps, or like these are the steps that we are crucial about. So now we take a sample from the defined population and we calculate the test statistic value, and depending on the test statistic value, we shall decide either to accept or reject the hypothesis. So this is the main steps involved in a statistical test procedure, where like we shall define all those things that we need. Then we'll take a sample, we will put it into the test statistic, and we shall calculate the test statistic and we'll get a value, and we shall check whether it belongs to the rejection region or acceptance region, and depending on which we shall decide whether to accept or reject the hypothesis or reject the null hypothesis. Okay. Thank you.